Hi everyone, welcome to the Diff Testing Tool session of the summit. My name is Gaurav Bansal. I'm working as a staff software engineer at ChargePoint. I am part of Android app development team, and I mainly work on mobile application development, Wear OS application development, and applications for automotive systems.
Hi everyone, I am Ayushi and I have been with ChargePoint for about a year now. I'm working as a software engineer over here and mainly focus on the automation for both Android and iOS. Over to you, Gaurav.
Thanks, Ayushi. So coming back to the topic of discussion. So today, Ayushi and me will be going through the different aspects of the diff testing tool that we have created here at ChargePoint. Now to start with, the first question that comes to mind is, what is diff testing tool? So diff testing tool is basically an automated process that we have created here at ChargePoint for comparing apps deterministic screenshots with a single source of truth. Now, there are two important points that I want your attention here. First is what are deterministic screenshots? And the other thing is what is single source of truth? Now, we all know that the apps screens basically render data that is coming from server. Now, over a period of time, these app screenshots can change with a change in the API data. So if the screenshots are getting changed with a change in the API data, the comparison will not be correct every time we use this tool. So to overcome this hurdle, what we are doing, we are generating the screenshots as part of our UI test cases, which uses mock data, mock API data. So our test cases generates deterministic screenshots every time they get executed. The other thing is the single source of truth. So what is the single source of truth? So single source of truth is a master set of screenshots, which is acting as a benchmark for every comparison. So the comparison happens between the current active branch and this master set of screenshots, which is also known as the single source of truth. Now, as I've explained, like the image comparison always happens between the current set and the master set. And any ambiguity from this master set is considered a UI regression unless it's an intended change. And the changes are highlighted via an HTML report, and we highlights any UI regressions as part of this report. Now you can see as part of this screenshot, on the left hand side, we have a master screenshot. Then in the middle, we have this current screenshot, and we are highlighting the the differences between these screenshots using this red marker. Now, why this tool? Why we need this tool at ChargePoint? So we always wanted to create an automated process where we can catch these unintended UI changes well in time on common UI elements as well as on per screen basis. Now we wanted that like these changes, these UI regressions can be caught like before the pull request gets merged into the target branch. So that was the first motivation behind like to create this tool so that we can save the QA bandwidth on these minor UI regressions and we can catch these as part of our development process. The second motivation was like we already had screenshot capabilities as part of our process at ChargePoint. So we wanted to build upon that. Now, why we had these screenshot capabilities here at ChargePoint? So we we support different languages for our app. So every time we introduce a new language, we need to get it reviewed by a set of reviewers. So who goes through these screenshots and then they give us their feedback, and then we make fixes as per their comments, and that's how the new languages gets rolled out. Now, for a reviewer, it's hard to go through like each flow using the app directly because they might not know all the in-depth flows of the app. It's easy for them to navigate through all the screenshots. That's why we had the screenshot capability already built in. Now, if I come to the implementation approach, so we use a image comparison library to compare two sets of images, and then we report the ambiguities via an HTML report. So we use ImageMagick as the image comparison library. Then we do have Bitrise Workflows in place to update the master set of screenshots and to do the image comparison. Then we also have image comparison integrated into our PR workflow so that whenever a PR is raised, the image comparison happens on that specific branch. And if there are any unintentional UI changes, they can be fixed. Then we report these differences or the result of the screenshot comparison using Danger plugin, which is basically used to put the messages on the PR conversation. And then at last, we use the Slack step of Bitrise to notify the developers about the results of these comparisons so that they can act accordingly. Now, there are different ways to integrate with Bitrise. So at ChargePoint, we mainly have two approaches to use this Diff Testing Tool. So Ayushi will be explaining the first approach, and then I'll be explaining you the second approach. So over to you, Ayushi.
Thank you, Gaurav. I'll share my screen. Okay, so as already mentioned, there are two different approaches to integrate the diff testing tool. I'll be discussing about the first approach, that is you integrating the diff testing result into our PR conversation. So this is the architecture for it. So let's see the architecture first. So it's basically divided into two major components. One first is the CI/CD pipeline, and the other is the third-party system that interacts with the CI/CD pipeline. In the CI/CD pipeline, there are two different workflows. One is the update, create, master screenshot set workflow, and the other is the PR workflow. The update, create, master screenshot set workflow basically help us to update the master set of images, which later acts as a source of truth for us. And the PR workflow helps us to report the diff testing result as a part of PR. So looking at the third-party systems, the Firebase test lab over here help us to run all the UI test cases and generate the screenshots out of those UI test cases. And the GitHub Android iOS repo helps us to store master set of images for both Android and iOS. And the Danger plugin basically helps us to beautify our PR and report the diff testing result. Now, what is happening here is once the UI test cases are run by the Firebase test lab, we take the screenshots, pull back those screenshots on Bitrise, and then automatically raises a PR for the updated master set of images for a GitHub repo. Now, once this repo, we see that all the changes that we see is okay, we merge those changes in our GitHub repo. Now, in the PR workflow, the first three steps remains the same. The additional step is that we do the screenshot comparison and report the diff testing result as a part of PR. So this is the overall architecture. Now let's look at the workflows. So here we have, let's first look at the update master screenshot workflow. As a part of this step, the first step is to trigger this workflow, and we use this using git tags. And a git tag looks like this. This is the workflow name. This is the latest app version, device name, OS version, language, region, and theme. So using these configurations, we trigger this workflow using a git tag. Now, suppose we do not have a git tag. What we do is we can, in the script itself, we can create a git tag. So you see, in this, we are extracting a latest app version, creating a new tag out of it, and then pushing that tag. So this helps us to push a new tag and incorporate all the changes. Now, what this step is basically helping us to do is that we can have all the have the collection of all the change logs, and we can maintain a commit history for all the change log, for all the commits that been done between the previous tag and the latest tag. So this helps us to maintain that history once we update our PR. So as a next step, we clone our screenshot repo. Now there are two repos. One is the Android mobile repo that we use to run the UI test cases. On that we run the UI test cases, and the other is the screenshot repo where we store the master set of images. And I'll show you what a screenshot repo looks like. And also all these scripts are custom written, so we haven't used any libraries. We are just writing the bash scripts and integrating that. So this is what a GitHub repo looks like. In this, we have different folders for both Android and iOS. for Android, we stored the different configurations for Android, and in iOS for iOS devices. Once we clone the screenshot repo, we have the environmental variable. This step helps us to set up the environmental variables. It will trigger this workflow using a Slack message. Once this is done, we run all the UI test cases and it generate the screenshots. Once the screenshots are generated, we export those screenshots and then rename those screenshots to remove any extra configs, if any. Once the screenshots are generated and screenshots are taken, the next step is to update the repo. Now, to update the repo, we, as we have already seen in our GitHub repo, where there are two folders for Android and iOS. Suppose in Android, we have a device configurations. Suppose we do not have a device configuration folder over here. So what we do is we create a folder from the script itself. And if we have any of the device configurations that's been passed, we delete all the existing files and update those folders. So this helps us to do that. Once the files is created and everything is done, we staged all the changes, commit them, push the changes, and raises a PR for it. So this helps us to raise the PR with the configuration. Now, so this is the overall PR. This is the commit message that we have prepared from the changelog step. And all the files are here. See the tags. We see all the values and files that's been changed. Also, once the PR is up, we get a Slack alert on our channel as well. So this is the overall workflow of update master screenshot. Now let's look at the PR diff testing workflow. In this, again, we clone our mobile app repo, we clone the screenshot repo, we set up the environmental variables as you trigger it using the Slack message, run the UI test cases, export the screenshots and rename it, and do the screenshot comparison. Now, this is the major step. In this, we have two folders. The first folder contains the master set of images, and the second folder contains the current working set of images. So we compare both the set of images together, and we do that using ImageMagick. Also, in this script, we are cropping the status bar and the bottom bar, because we do not want to have the status bars, because every time we take a screenshot, the time may be different, and this way we get differences for all the screenshots, and we do not want to do that. So this way we are cropping the status bar for it. Once the status bar are cropped, we do the comparison. Now over here as well, in the comparison, we can set up a value in case we want to ignore very minute changes in our comparison. We can do that by setting up a value. So you see in our script, we have added 50. So anything which is less than 50, the value of it will be less than 50 will be considered as the same image and will not be shown as a part of difference. But any value above 50 will be shown as a difference image and will be shown in a diff testing result. So this helps us to do that. The screenshot, after the screenshot comparison is done, we generate a HTML report out of it. Now this is a custom bash script that we have written to create a HTML report. Once the screenshots are incorporated in the HTML report, we see the current working set images, the master set of images, and the differences which are highlighted with the red color, as Gaurav has already shown in one of the images. We'll talk about the HTML report as well. But before that, we prepare the PR for it. So in this, we export all the set of images and all the set of screenshots using, and that's done using the key map pair. So we extract those images and we separate that using the comma. So with the comma, we put that as a part of array and then store that result in an environmental variable. Now, this is what the PR looks like. In this, we have the master set of images, the current, and the diff testing results. And from here as well, we can see the HTML report. When we click on this, we can go to the HTML report. Now, this is our HTML report. This is the file name. The screenshot name over here represents the file name. This is the master set of images. This is the current working set of images, and this is the differences between both the set of images. We can also see various details about this, like, for example, on which device it's being taken, the light, the theme of the device, and etc. So this helps us to do that. So this was the overall architecture of how the diff testing works. Now, let's look at the Slack alert that's being generated. So this is what a Slack alert we get from the update master. If we click on this, we'll be automatically taken to the update master screenshot repo that's been raised by the update master screenshot workflow. So this is the overall architecture of how we integrate the diff testing result in our PR. Now Gaurav will be explaining about the second approach, that is keeping the screenshots as a separate folder instead of as a part of PR. Over to you, Gaurav.
Thank you, Ayushi. So yeah, so as you have seen, like Ayushi has explained, like how we do the updation of the master set of screenshots and how we do the screenshot comparison as part of our PR workflow. Now, the second approach that we also follow here at ChargePoint is like to have the screenshot comparison as a separate workflow. So as part of this approach, so the first half where we are updating the master screenshot, that remains same. There is no difference there. The second part is like we do the screenshot comparison as a separate Bitrise workflow. And then we have set in place like certain triggers, which basically executes the screenshot comparison. Now, why we do the screenshot comparison as a separate workflow? So the main reason behind this is like it gives us the flexibility to do the screenshot comparison for multiple device configurations. Because as you have seen that in PR workflow, we can do the comparison at max for one device configuration, because otherwise if we'll include multiple device configurations, the PR workflow will be too lengthy to get executed in a specific time frame. So that's why we have this screenshot comparison as a separate workflow. So as I was telling you guys, like we have the trigger set up for triggering the screenshot comparison workflow. So now going forward, I'll explain you like how the screenshot comparison workflow works, and then what are the triggers for update master screenshot workflow and the screenshot comparison workflow. Now let's go through the workflow triggers, like how the screenshot comparison gets executed and how the update master gets executed. But before that, let's discuss like what is the screenshot comparison workflow. So the screenshot comparison workflow is mostly similar to what we have in the PR workflow, like the comparison that we do, but it's a separate workflow. So it does the comparison between the current active branch and the master set of screenshots, and then it posts the result via Slack message. So there are different steps as part of this workflow. So the first is like cloning the mobile repo, then we clone the screenshot repo. So this is a custom bash script that we have written to clone the screenshot repo via Git. So we clone the screenshot repo through this step. And then we move on to the setup environment variable step, where basically we are setting up the device configuration for this particular workflow. So all this configuration will be passed to this workflow from within in a separate workflow, which I'll tell you going forward. Then we perform the UI testing on Firebase Test Lab. We export the screenshots from the Firebase Test Lab. Then we perform the screenshot comparison, as Ayushi has already explained. So this is similar to what we do in PR workflow. Then we prepare the HTML report, which is basically the result of the comparison. And then we share these HTML report via Slack messages. So the concerned developers are like get the alerts, Slack alerts for these reports, and they can act accordingly. Now I'll tell you how this screenshot comparison gets triggered as part of our regular workflows. So nightly is one of our regular workflow which gets triggered whenever something gets merged into stage or release branch. So the idea is whenever something gets merged into stage or release branch, we perform the screenshot comparison, and then we try to fix any UI regression. Now, you can see here we have 4 steps at the start of this workflow. So these steps basically set up the device configuration for the screenshot comparison workflow, and then they trigger the screenshot comparison workflow with these device configuration. So you will see like as part of this step where we're setting up the device configuration for the first set of comparison. So we're setting up the device theme, language, and the other device configurations. And then we are triggering the screenshot comparison via Bitrise trigger workflow step. So you see, like we are triggering the screenshot comparison workflow. You can see the workflow ID here. And then we pass on the device configuration, which we have set in the previous step, to the screenshot comparison workflow via that specific field. Now, again, this is like we are setting up the device configuration for the second set of comparison, and we're triggering the second instance of screenshot comparison and passing on the these environment variables as part of this field. Now this will trigger, I mean, this whole setup will trigger the screenshot comparison for two set of device configuration, and then share the result via Slack message. In future, we can obviously add more device configurations and can perform comparison on more device configurations. So now I'll tell you like how the master set of screenshots are getting updated. So for that, we have nightly for develop workflow. So whenever something gets merged into develop, which is our main branch and which has all the QA sign-offs, this particular workflow gets executed. Now, when this workflow gets executed, we want to update the master set of screenshot, because any change in the develop branch means that there might be some change in the master set. So similar to what we have in the screenshot comparison in the nightly workflow, we are setting up the device configuration first, and then we are triggering the master set of we are triggering the update master screenshot workflow. So whatever device configuration that we have set up in the previous step, so this step will use that configuration and then trigger the update master screenshot workflow. Now you can see that the this is how like we are passing on the device configuration. This is similar to what I've shown in the nightly workflow as well. And now like you can see similarly we are setting up the device configuration for the second update master screenshot workflow, and then we are triggering the second instance of update master screenshot workflow. So that's how we maintain the master set of screenshots. Now the result of the update master screenshot is in the form of a PR. So this is how a PR will look like. We'll go through the changes here in the screenshots, and if everything looks fine, we just merge this PR and the master set gets updated. Now, this is all in all how we do the update masters. We maintain the triggers for update master screenshot and screenshot comparison. Now, as I was telling, like this is how the triggers are maintained. Like anything that's getting merged into develop, we trigger the nightly for develop, and anything related to nightly release or stage branch, nightly gets triggered, and in turn screenshot comparison gets triggered. So that's how we do the trigger management for both of these workflows. Now, going forward, this is how the diff test results is notified to our developers. So this is done via Slack message. So you see, like as part of this Slack message, we have the branch details, we have the device details on which the comparison has happened, and then we have the link to download the HTML report. Now, by clicking that link, you will get a zip file which will have an HTML report. So the HTML report will look like this, where on the left-hand side, you have the master screenshot, in the middle, you have the screenshot from the current branch, and then we have the differences as the third screenshot, which is highlighting the differences with the red label. So this was all that we, both Ayushi and me, have for you regarding the diff testing tool. So we have a QR code here as part of this slide. You can scan this QR code and you will be navigated to a document which will contain all the scripts, custom scripts that we have written as part of these workflows. So if you want to set up something similar and you need help, you can refer that doc. And you can also reach out to us. Our contact details are mentioned here as part of the slide. You can reach out to us if you need any help, and we'll be happy to help you out, guys, in any ways possible. So that's all from our side. Thank you all for attending this session.
Yeah, thank you, everyone. Thanks a lot.